Keto. Cut carbs down to almost nothing, usually under 50 grams a day, and something strange happens inside your body. Your preferred fuel, glucose, runs dry, and your liver starts chopping up stored fat into molecules called ketones, an alternate fuel your brain and muscles can burn when sugar isn't around. That state is called ketosis, and it's a real testable metabolic shift, not a buzzword. Here's the mechanism that actually makes people lose weight on it. Protein and fat are extremely filling, and cutting out an entire food category, all bread, all rice, all sugar, removes a huge chunk of the foods people tend to overeat by accident. Fewer options plus more satiety equals eating less without even trying to. The famous rapid first week of weight loss, though, is mostly a magic trick. Carbohydrate is stored in your muscles bound to water, about 3 grams of water for every gram of stored carb. Deplete the carbs and the water leaves with it. That's not fat disappearing. That's your body wringing itself out like a sponge. The real slower fat loss underneath still comes from the same place it always does, eating less than you burn. Should you try it? It works well if restriction is what makes eating less feel automatic for you. Just don't mistake the scale day one whoosh for actual fat loss. Carnivore. This is keto's much more extreme cousin. Meat, fish, eggs, and sometimes dairy. Nothing else. No vegetables, no fruit, no grains, nothing that grew from soil. The pitch is that plants are full of unnecessary anti-nutrients and that humans thrive purely on animal foods. Strip away the ideology, and here's what's actually happening biologically. It's an extremely aggressive elimination diet. Cutting out entire categories of food removes common triggers of bloating and digestive discomfort for some people, which is why a subset of carnivore dieters genuinely feel better early on. Less gas, less brain fog, fewer stomach issues. That's a real reportable effect for certain individuals, particularly ones with underlying gut sensitivities. But the weight loss mechanism is the same blunt instrument as every restrictive diet on this list. When your entire food universe shrinks to a handful of items, you naturally eat less volume and fewer total calories. Because food variety is one of the biggest drivers of overeating. Remove the variety, and appetite drops along with it. The catch is that this is also the most nutritionally risky diet here. Fiber disappears entirely, and several vitamins normally supplied by plants become genuinely hard to hit. Should you try it? The elimination effect is real for some people's digestion, but it's the most extreme, least studied, and easiest to get wrong of anything on this list. Mediterranean. If any diet on this list has an actual mountain of long-term research behind it, this is the one. It's not really a restrictive diet at all, more a pattern. Olive oil instead of butter, fish and legumes instead of processed meat, vegetables piled onto every plate, and wine in moderation if you drink it all. Here's the mechanism that keeps showing up in study after study. Olive oil and fish are loaded with unsaturated fats, which appear to lower inflammation and improve the ratio of cholesterol types in your blood compared to diets heavy in saturated and processed fats. Meanwhile, the sheer volume of vegetables and legumes brings enormous amounts of fiber into every meal, which slows digestion, keeps blood sugar steadier, and fills your stomach on relatively few calories, similar to the volume eating trick behind most weight loss on any list-based diet. The weight loss here tends to be slower and less dramatic than keto or carnivore because nothing is being aggressively cut, but it also tends to actually stick because nothing feels like punishment. Should you try it? If you want the diet with the least chance of quietly wrecking your long-term health while you lose weight, this is consistently the one researchers point to. Paleo. The pitch is simple and almost romantic. Eat like your hunter-gatherer ancestors did. Meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, nuts, and cut out anything that came from modern agriculture. Grains, legumes, dairy, refined sugar. The reasoning is that our genes haven't caught up to processed food, so eating ancestral should be the natural fit for our biology. Here's where the actual mechanism lives, separate from the origin story. Cutting grains and refined sugar automatically strips out an enormous chunk of the ultra-processed, calorie-dense, easy-to-overeat foods that dominate the modern diet. Chips, white bread, soda, packaged snacks. That alone drives most of the weight loss, not some ancestral genetic match. There's a real scientific wrinkle here too. Legumes and whole grains, both banned on Paleo, are actually two of the best studied sources of fiber and are linked to lower heart disease risk in most nutrition research. So cutting them isn't obviously an upgrade. It's more of a trade-off. Should you try it? The weight loss mechanism is solid. Less processed food equals fewer stealth calories. But the ancestral framing oversells foods it happens to exclude for reasons that aren't really backed by the actual data. Vegan and vegetarian. Cut out meat, and for vegan, cut out all animal products entirely. Dairy, eggs, honey, everything. The ethical and environmental reasons are the usual entry point, but the weight loss mechanism riding along with it is almost entirely about fiber and calorie density. Plant foods, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, are generally far less calorie dense than animal products and meat-heavy processed foods, meaning you can eat a genuinely large volume of food for relatively few calories, which fills your stomach and satisfies hunger signals without the deficit feeling like deprivation. Fiber does double duty here too, slowing digestion and feeding gut bacteria that produce compounds linked to better metabolic health. Here's the catch nobody puts on the poster. Vegan does not automatically mean healthy. Oreos, fries, and soda are all technically vegan, and a diet built around vegan junk food will not produce weight loss because the mechanism was never no animal products. It was always more fiber, more volume, fewer processed calories. The other real risk is nutritional. Vitamin B12 exists almost exclusively in animal products, and iron, zinc, and omega-3s are all harder to hit without deliberate planning. Should you try it? The mechanism works well when it's whole food based. Swap meat for lentils and vegetables, and it's genuinely powerful. Swap meat for vegan junk and you've changed nothing. Intermittent fasting. Eat only within a set window, commonly 8 hours, and fast for the rest of the day. This one convinced half the internet that timing itself is a secret metabolic lever. Let's look at the actual machinery. When you eat, insulin rises to shuttle sugar out of your blood, and while insulin is elevated, fat burning is largely paused because insulin's entire job is to tell your body to store energy, not release it. Fast long enough, and insulin drops, which opens the door for stored fat to get used as fuel. That part is real biology. Here's the myth. People assume the open door guarantees fat loss, but it just means your body is capable of burning fat. It still needs an actual calorie deficit to draw down on it. Studies comparing fasting windows against regular eating at matched total calories consistently find similar weight loss either way. The real mechanism driving results isn't the clock. It's that a shorter eating window makes it a lot harder to snack your way through an entire day by accident, which quietly builds a deficit for you. Should you try it? If squeezing your eating into fewer hours naturally stops you overeating, it's a genuinely useful tool. If you just cram the same total calories into a smaller window, the clock changes nothing. Whole30 and Whole Foods. 30 days. No sugar, no alcohol, no grains, no legumes, no dairy, nothing processed. The pitch is a full reset. Eliminate everything, then slowly reintroduce foods one at a time to see what your body actually reacts to. The mechanism here is almost purely about processed food removal, not any single nutrient. Ultra-processed foods are engineered quite literally, with combinations of fat, sugar, and salt calibrated to override your normal fullness signals, making them dramatically easier to overeat than whole foods, even at the same calorie count. strip all of that out for 30 days, and people reliably eat less without consciously trying, purely because the food in front of them isn't hijacking their appetite anymore. The reintroduction phase is genuinely the smartest part of this diet, and it borrows directly from actual elimination diet protocols used in medicine. Adding foods back one at a time is a legitimate way to spot personal intolerances that a permanent restrictive diet would never reveal. Should you try it? As a short, structured reset, it has real value, mostly by proving to people how much of their normal eating was processed food. As a permanent lifestyle, the restriction is unnecessarily strict once the reintroduction phase is done. Dietary approaches to stop hypertension was built by researchers specifically to lower blood pressure, not for weight loss, and yet it quietly does both. The structure looks a lot like Mediterranean: vegetables, fruit, whole grains, lean protein, but with one specific extra rule: sodium gets capped hard, typically under 2,300 milligrams a day. Here's the mechanism for blood pressure. Sodium pulls water into your bloodstream, and more fluid in a fixed space means more pressure against your artery walls, similar to overfilling a garden hose. Cut sodium, and that pressure eases. The weight loss piece rides on the same trick as every whole food diet on this list. High fiber from all the produce and whole grain fills you up on fewer calories, and cutting sodium tends to mean cutting the processed packaged foods that carry the vast majority of it. Chips, deli meat, canned soup, which just happen to also be some of the most calorie-dense foods in a normal diet. Should you try it? If blood pressure is a genuine concern for you, this is one of the most rigorously studied diets in existence for that specific problem. And the weight loss comes along as a reliable side effect. The real takeaway: look past the branding on every single one of these, and you'll find the same handful of levers being pulled over and over. Cut processed food, and you cut the foods engineered to make you overeat. Add fiber and volume, and you get full-on fewer calories. Cut entire food categories, and you shrink your options enough that eating less happens without a fight. None of these diets have found some secret metabolic loophole. They're all different costumes worn by the same underlying mechanism: a calorie deficit made easier to sustain. The diet that actually works long-term was never the one with the cleverest name. It's the one built around real food that you can still be eating a year from now.